Welcome to McGonigal's Chronicles, Making Montana Connections. I'm KRTV and KXLH anchor and reporter Tim McGonigal. No matter where you travel in the Treasure State, it's hard to miss the influence of Charles M. Russell. From books to paintings, trails to poems, the Western artist is as much a part of Montana lore as the bison that roamed the plains and the eagles that have occupied the big sky. And that Russell influence made an impact on Cary Morin. The Native American musician was born in Billings. He spent much of his time growing up in Great Falls, and now he's honoring Russell with his latest album entitled Innocent Allies. Morin's musical style is broad, playing everything from folk rock to country and funk to reggae before settling on his current style, which mixes those genres with a bit of blues. And his artistic journey has included sharing the stage with the likes of Taj Mahal, Los Lobos, and Bonnie Raitt. He now lives in Colorado, where in late December he took time to talk about growing up in Montana, the Innocent Allies project, and his musical career that shows no signs of slowing down. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Cary Morin. Cary, thank you so much for taking time to speak with me here today. Before we get into the album and to the music and stuff, I just wanted to kind of find a little bit more about you. You have very strong Montana roots, I know, and as well as Native American roots. Talk about your background.
Well, my father was in the Air Force, and we moved around a little bit when I was little, but he ended up getting a job at the base in Great Falls. And I don't know, he must have been a pretty popular guy because he seemed to pick his own assignments. He ended up buying a house out by Ulm, and that's where I spent most of my youth. I think I went to school at Meadowlark for 5th and 6th grade, and then I went to West Junior High, which I don't think is a junior high anymore, and I graduated from CMR in '81. And that whole time, just was really interested in piano and playing guitar. And right about the time I left town after graduation, it was about the same time I started getting interested in songwriting.
Okay. Anything you remember in particular about Great Falls from your time growing up here?
Yeah, the one thing that really stands out is musically. There were a couple of bands that played house gigs, and they would play 5 or 6 nights a week, every week, every month, for years and years. They did. I don't know if they still do that in Great Falls, but that gave me the opportunity to get to know musicians who played music regularly, and playing every day and playing regularly. You get a chance to really hone in on your craft, and it was a real pleasure to know these players and talk to them and learn from them. When we went in to see them, they would always get us on stage, and so it was a time in my life when I really learned what a working musician does.
Okay. And as your music career continued and as it stands today, how would you describe your brand of music to someone who might not have heard you yet?
Sure, there's a lot of folks that haven't heard me. I I I've kind of gone through a lot of things over the years. I started out playing like folk and folk rock, country stuff, acoustic music, in Colorado, like mostly at ski areas. And then I moved into playing in bands. So there was more dance music, more funk and reggae and rock stuff. I did that for 20 years or so, and that whole time kind of songwriting and trying to improve on the my songwriting. eventually got back around to playing acoustic again, and that's really been my focus. So the style of music that I do is kind of a combination of all that stuff, with blues and country thrown in there too.
Okay. And somewhere along the line, you picked up an affinity for Charlie Russell, the great Western artist. Talk about how that kind of came about for you.
Well, Charlie's work was always there when I was growing up. It, it was everywhere. Uh, my dad really loved his stories. Um, and we always had all the coffee table books. Um, they were always around, and I just grew up seeing his work, um, most of my life, and having left Montana and lived in Colorado since '81. um, I bump into more and more people that aren't familiar with his work. That didn't happen in Montana. Everybody knew who Charlie was. And so I think that this album is just a way to introduce people to Charlie's work, and for people that know him, it's a chance to celebrate Montana hero.
Yeah, and I think I saw an interview where you said Charlie Russell, obviously known for his art and like the stories I think that he told around the campfire and stuff, but also was a musician. Can you explain that? Because a lot of people probably don't realize that.
I didn't either. A friend of mine in Montana told me that he was doing some work at the museum, and noticed that there was a banjo hanging in the studio, and asked about it. And yeah, the folks at the museum said, "Oh, that's Charlie's banjo." So yeah, my friend actually got a chance to play the thing and everything. So yeah, he was. I don't know anything more than that. How accomplished he was, but I sure like his poems, and
Oh.
his poetry was, I think, um, so descriptive and just so mindful. Um, I really like the way that he wrote. So um, that that has an influence on this album as well.
All right. Yeah, I bet if we don't know how accomplished he was, but just judging from the stories we've heard about how he would just trace on napkins these very elaborate drawings, Western scenes and stuff like that. I would
Yeah.
imagine with a banjo, he was probably pretty amazing too.
And pretty handy with a banjo, I'm thinking. And his uh, his time in along the river valley, um, from say like Cascade um, to Great Falls. Um, a lot of those paintings, I can see where my dad's house would be. Uh,
Okay.
out by all my, just by judging where he put Square Butte a lot of the times,
Mhm.
and in relation to where the river flows, my dad's house would be right in between there. Um, so that's like it's just great memories, and it was musically um, pretty easy to get done. It was like a project that almost completed itself for me. I should have done this a long time ago.
Yeah, you're of course talking about the latest album, Innocent Allies. Are all the
Yeah.
cuts on this album inspired by Charlie Russell and maybe paintings of his?
Uh, Almost. There's one cover on the album, and a traditional bluegrass tune, um, but they all relate in my life to my time in Montana, and all my time in Montana is tied in with Charlie's work too. So it all kind of comes together.
Well, the latest single that you've released, Indian Hunter's Return, that of course is one of the I mean, I think really all of Charlie Russell's paintings are iconic, but that's one that really stands out. I know my grandmother had a reproduction of that in her house when I was a kid, so I saw it often. But what drew you to that particular that painting and eventually the song, which was the offshoot of that, Indian Hunter's Return?
Well, that painting has been a part of my life as far back as I can remember because it hung in my grandfather's house
Okay.
since before I was born. And so, like you, I it was just always there. It was part of the house. And having looked at that painting and some other classic paintings of his, um, you know, Charlie had a way of freezing a moment in time, and some of his images, you can tell something's about to happen. In that particular painting, I tried to imagine um, the hunt uh, and what happened afterwards from Charlie's image, that frozen moment in time. And so I did that for a lot of the songs, is try to describe what came up to that moment, what might have happened afterwards.
Okay. Well, what do you hope listeners get from your music and from this album, I guess?
Well, this is I think it's my ninth album. So I've been recording all sorts of different projects for myself and helping other people out with their albums. Um, and there's so much art and so much beauty and music to listen to in the world, and I hope that this can become uh, part of somebody's playlist. Um, and I know that I really enjoy listening to a variety of music from um, um, world music to country music, and I'm always trying to discover new things. And I'm happy to provide music for other people to discover.
Okay. So Charlie Russell, obviously an inspiration. Any other artists, musical or otherwise, that or native or non-native American that help inspire you and your work?
Uh, well, I'm a big Earl Biss fan. He's a painter.
Okay.
Uh, uh, as far as painting, um, I'd have to say probably Earl Biss is like what we have hanging in our house.
Okay.
Um, and I've got a huge appreciation for Charlie's sculptures and for other people's paintings too. I spend an awful lot of time crafting my music, so we don't get out to museums as much as we like, but we do, like when we are on tour, we do try and stop by some of the bigger museums. Uh, the uh, the Cowboy Museum in Oklahoma City is a good one. Um, some of these bigger museums are still closed down uh, from COVID. And I
Mhm.
think they took the opportunity to redesign their spaces. So once we get back out on the road, we'll get a chance to get out and see more stuff. I always encourage people to do that if they're traveling.
Okay.
And if like I always try and encourage my friends, if they're in Montana, make an effort to head to Great Falls and see the Charlie Russell Museum.
Absolutely. It's one of those places where you can go over and over, and you can always see something new in a painting or one of the sculptures or something, and or learn something new. So it's just a great experience. Getting back to the Indian Hunter's Return, I was reading that that was a song that you kind of worked with your son on. To talk about that collaboration.
We were in um, Ohio visiting some family 2 years ago, and my wife and I travel in an RV with our dogs. So we don't really do hotels. Um, I had it parked in our some relatives' driveway, and we flew our son out to join us for a couple of days. And I was in the process of putting songs together um, for this project. And Eli is a budding musician himself. He's pretty good banjo player and a pretty good guitar player, and he plays bass in a sort of a jazz funk band. Um, so he's got a keen interest in music. So I asked him if he'd like to take a stab at songwriting. So I showed him this painting, Indian Hunter's Return, and just said, let's imagine how this moment came to be, and we started jotting down lines and put it all together, and that's where that song came from.
All right. Well, Cary, I recently interviewed a couple of Native American artists, Blackfeet artists, Jonathan Pepion, who's a ledger artist, Louis Stillsmoking, who's a painter, and also interviewed Lily Gladstone, the actress. Just briefly got to talk to her, but still. Um, and now you yourself, and it just kind of makes me think that there's more Native American artists out there that a lot of us maybe think of. What would you attribute the success of people like yourself and Lily Gladstone and those other artists, and probably the countless others throughout the country, the growing popularity of Native American artists, whether it be music or poetry or whatever? What would you attribute that to?
Man, it's hard to say. I think that I always considered myself to be a songwriter first, but my culture and my family has always found its way into my songs, whether it's watching my kids grow up or remembering things that my grandparents said, or being in specific places that I'm really fond of. Um, and I think that it's important for people to, um, as an artist, uh, think about culture and think about your upbringing, and it's impossible not to. So I don't think that it really depends on if you're native, non-native, whatever your background is. Um, it's important to celebrate that in your art. I think that native artists do that um, regularly, but I think all artists do that.
Okay. So Innocent Allies is coming out soon, the full album, I guess. When and how can people get their hands on that?
Well, it'll be available everywhere that you like to get your music. Uh, a good place to start out is my website, carymorin.com.
Okay.
But it'll be on Amazon and all those places digitally. Um, but if you want a CD, we can figure out a way to get you one.
Okay, and I think I saw January 26th is when that is coming out. And people can also go to your website and they can hear those singles that have already been released. The because I know that one, let's see, Big Sky.
Big
Sorry, I don't
Sky
have the
Sun Goes Down
Big
was
Sky.
the
Okay.
first single, and then Indian Hunter's Return is the second single, and then uh, an instrumental um, just got released yesterday by the bluegrasssituation.com in California. And that song is a traditional fiddle tune called Whiskey Before Breakfast that I do
Okay.
like a solo fingerstyle acoustic guitar version of that song.
Okay. Looking forward to that. So Cary, what are your plans? Are you on tour, going on tour, or going back to the studio for more music? What's in your upcoming future plans, I guess?
We did pretty extensive tour this past summer. It's over now. We're taking our winter months to concentrate on the release of this album, and I've been kind of reimagining my little studio and doing some upgrades there. And I'll start thinking about another project. My puppy. I'm thinking about another project. I'm thinking about a podcast
Nice.
that I can do from our studio here. And I really like those Kevin Red Star paintings from Red Lodge.
Okay.
And I'm thinking about maybe trying to imagine some of those musically.
All right. And it may be too far down the road to think ahead to this, but do you have any plans, maybe this upcoming summer or spring or anytime soon, to be back in Montana and doing any performances here in Big Sky Country?
We just did, actually. We just did 4 dates
Okay.
last month, and we will have more plans to come up and play. Usually we start around Livingston,
Okay.
and there's usually a Billings date. It's been a while since I've done any Great Falls shows, so we would really love to do that. And we're thinking about maybe coming to the Charlie auction.
Okay. Excellent. Well, and I'm sure people would love to see you and hear more of your stories and um, get their hands on some of that great music that you've got coming out.
Well, thank you. It's always fun to see old friends and make new ones. And yeah, we always look forward to coming back to Montana.
All right. Well, Cary, thank you so much for taking time today to talk and share with us more about the album, your background, just who you are. And I know you said earlier, maybe some people might not know who you are, but hopefully we'll get that word out there, and Innocent Allies will do gangbusters for people downloading and listening to it.
That's great. Thanks for the help.
You've been listening to a conversation with musician Cary Morin, a Montana-born guitarist and songwriter whose latest album, Innocent Allies, pays tribute to legendary Western artist Charlie Russell. And you can find out how to download or even purchase his music on his website, CaryMorin.com. That's CaryMorin. And remember, you can subscribe to McGonigal's Chronicles wherever you get your podcasts, and you can follow the podcast on social media. I'll be back soon with another interesting guest with a Montana connection. Until then, from McGonigal's Chronicles, Making Montana Connections, I'm Tim McGonigal.